And that interest, again, has to come out of the productivity of all workers, of all citizens of the country, have to keep paying that tax, that interest benefit tax, to those holders of this debt, this claim of ownership. And through decades of that already, the wealthy just keep getting wealthier because they keep making money without having to do any work. I mean, you can't make it any easier. They pay a lower rate of tax than workers pay on their income, and so they're just guaranteed to keep gaining in the race, keep getting more and more power, and in turn more and more power to contract other people out of their rights, and create more and more circumstances where people are seducible into taking on more debt that can't be sustained. So I don't know. There's probably a couple other little angles I could get to in the beginning here, but so the basic idea is an economic system is just about creating incentives, putting carrots in front of the right people to get as much work as possible out of them without compromising their welfare. So it's like slavery was hugely productive, got a huge amount of productivity out of people, but it cost too much in terms of the ethical indignity imposed, the criminal theft of that productivity. So you want something short of that. You want something short of abusive extortion, where people are in a circumstance where they can't fairly contract, where they can't fairly choose, where they're backed into a corner by a circumstance not of their creation. And it's another thing that's got to be fixed by the system. That's why you create something like a minimum wage, and that's why you create something like progressive taxation. And you certainly should have a tax system that takes the meat, the beef, the real excess, the fat, let's say, the real excessive fat out of the inheritance equation, where maybe you allow people to inherit a couple of $1 million advantage, a huge cheat in real terms, but no more, nothing more preposterously insane than that. And by doing that, at least you ensure that money will have to get re-earned, that ownership will have to get re-earned, that it won't just keep passing through hands that never have to do any work to possess that surplus. It's just a permanent, perpetually possessed taxing machine that just will exist as an entity that overvalues property or whatever commodity the rich claim ownership of. Like I say, they claim now ownership of $40 trillion worth of assets, which might be all the assets in the country. And they claim ownership to it. And if those IOUs are ever paid, there'll never be enough hard assets in the real world today to pay them, because most of those IOUs are made out of contracts on future labor. That's what the debt represents, essentially. All debt is a contract where you're basically agreeing to accept somebody's future labor in exchange for ownership today, or at least possession, not ownership, because the ownership always retained by the surplus holder, and that's the catch in the whole system. But anyway, the whole system's going to crash because, we've got more debt slips out there than assets for certain, and too high a percentage are debt slips on future productivity that can never be gleaned. You'll never get enough work out of people to pay the debt. That's enough, I believe. I'm pretty certain. I substantially think so. Alright, just to add a little bit. part of the argument here is that there can be a better way to create forward investment in the future, to create future work, to get a house built before you have the money for the house, so to speak. And the better way is without paying interest, is to just return the money back that you used. So theoretically, you get the money to build a house, you pay the money back. It's that simple. No interest, no anything else, just simple. And then everything retains its real value. There's no need to create surplus to pay back the extra. And people would argue that capital is at risk, but the risk is tiny compared to the amount of money that's being charged in interest. So again, it's part of the system not being regulated. And so if you don't have an interest rate that's regulated well enough, low enough, then you end up with 30% credit card rates or some other preposterous number where you're no longer paying for just the risk, you're paying for the exploitation profit that can be gleaned. And then these deals are sold and resold and resold. It's as insurance. So no one's holding any one of the deals. So it's all part of the racket. But anyway, the point is that we can make an agreement with each other to put the money forward and borrow it from each other, essentially, from ourselves, and take that risk and put on the burden of productive investment. The Hoover Dam is returned in product